Hello, welcome to Bowdoin. I know that you've been welcomed endlessly, either by myself, my colleagues, or truly everyone on campus, or by the weather. So very thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time to learn about student affairs here at the college. My name is Jackie. I'm in admissions. I hope that this is the least that you hear me speak because we have a panel of incredible folks on stage, both staff and students. So I'm going to go ahead and ask our panelists to introduce themselves, their roles here at the college, what they oversee, and for the students, of course, hometown majors, what you're involved in, those lists. So please, I'm going to invite Janet to kick us off.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's great to be here. My name is Janet Lohman, and I am the Senior Vice President and Dean for Student Affairs here. I've been here for about 20 years. Not in this role. I'm finishing up my 4th year here. It's a long title, and lots of people are like, so what does that mean? I oversee the entire Division of Student Affairs. One of my colleagues is on this panel. But anything that students experience beyond the academic program oftentimes falls within the Division of Student Affairs. So there's 15 different offices: athletics, career planning, residential life, the outing club, the McKean Center, student activities, the Dean of Students Office, health, counseling, Thrive, student accessibility, international students. I put my list here, so I think I got them all. Multicultural life, SWAG, which is sexuality, women, and gender, religious and spiritual life, Upward Bound. So all the things that students use in this residential space to really compose their days and evenings on our campus. There are 140 people in the Division of Student Affairs who are working tirelessly to think about ways of which engaging students, supporting them, challenging them on occasion, but really helping them think about how they want their experience to evolve in a whole host of ways. We work alongside academic affairs in many efforts as well. We're a small campus, we get to do that. But it is delightful to be here. I know I'm not supposed to say this, but I'm a proud Philadelphian, so if anybody here is from Philly, I'm from Philly. And I'm gonna hand it off.
Hey everyone, my name is Gabrielle Phillips. Gabrielle, I'm a student here, a junior. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently a sociology and education coordinate major. I'm from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, so also PA. And I am currently on the track and field team. I'm a sprinter, so if any of y'all are interested in going out for the track team or have been recruited for the track team, you will see me next year. And I am also the head house proctor and proctor of Baxter House, which is one of our social houses here on campus, which we'll probably hear a little bit more about later on in the panel. Yeah, pass it on.
Greetings and salutations. Greetings and salutations. I'm Dr. Christina Bethia Odejimi, just helping people out. I am the Dean of Students, and so in my role as Dean of Students, I oversee the Office of the Dean of Students, which includes all of our class deans, student conduct, working with our crisis case management. I also oversee student accessibility. I oversee health and counseling, and oversee Thrive. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that's everything.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Angevine. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a current junior neuroscience major from Washington, D.C. I'm also on the pre-health track. Outside of the classroom, I am also a college house proctor for Booty Johnson House, which is the funky greenhouse on Main Street. I also am on the track and field and cross-country teams. I am an admissions tour guide. I will be a senior admissions interviewer next fall, and I'm also pretty involved in neuroscience research on campus.
Incredible.
So a lot.
Yeah, classic Bowdoin students. Yeah, honestly, clapping for introductions I think is the right thing to do given how much they all do for our campus. So this is just going to be a Q&A session. This is time for you all to figure out what you need to know about student affairs and student life here. There are folks who will be passing around microphones if you have any questions that you would pose to our lovely friends here on stage. No pressure.
We heard a lot about the academic experience in the previous panel. Could the students tell me a little bit about how you spend your Fridays and Saturdays and pretend like the parents aren't here?
I mean, even if you were.
You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So my Friday usually starts off with a 9 to 10 topics in neuroscience class, and then from there, Brunswick has a really great coffee shop over like 2-ish blocks that way. It's called Dog Bar Gym. I frequently go on Fridays and literally catch up with a couple friends. We make it a habit to go at 10 a.m. every Friday. And then from there, I think one pretty crucial aspect to like the Bowdoin weekend culture is long meals. Like when Friday and Saturday hit, people aren't as stressed about homework, so very frequently you're spending like an hour, even 2 in the dining hall, catching up with friends, discussing what you have on docs for the weekend. For both Gabby and I, a lot of our weekends are spent at various track and cross country meets, practice. When the weather gets really nice like this, a couple of friends of mine are going to Popham Beach later today, Schiller Coastal Study Center. Especially in the spring and fall, I think the weekends are a really great time to take advantage of what Brunswick and Maine have to offer in terms of like hiking, sightseeing, beaches. Yeah, Gabby, you want to add?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I agree with all of that. But going back on how I spend my Fridays, I don't have any classes on Fridays, so I usually, do a longer shift. I work at the student aid office as well. So if y'all send out like emails or give like the office some calls, like I might be the one to pick up the phone or send you some answers to the questions you have. And then afterwards, I have a lot of meetings, so my Fridays are kind of boring. But I would also agree, like longer meal times are fantastic. I love just like sitting in like Thorne Dining Hall or Moulton just for hours. Like it's very therapeutic, I would say. Like my friends will come and like sit down or like leave while I'm still there. You could do homework, you could like watch a show. So much fun. And then also when it's warm, people live on the quad, Frisbees, spike ball, with blankets, hammocks. This campus loves a hammock. So I think very dependent on the weather, well, you'll see students, but a lot of the times if they're not like trying to catch up on work or do some things before like the evening time where they take more of like a break, chill out with their friends and stuff like that, then people will be outside. Yeah.
I would also say students do engage in different parties and events that happen. The administrator, dean of students, is telling you this. There are other things that our students are doing. They are wonderful examples. And there are also other things that you would imagine that a typical college student is doing. It is happening here at Bowdoin College. And so that is available for our students as well.
And I'll also add, and thanks Dino Dejmi for breaking the ice, but the Bowdoin social scene is super, super inclusive. And one, the college does a really great job of putting on like all school events that are open to the entire campus. Like last week, and we had a concert in Smith Union. Like last month, or maybe 2 months ago, we had the spring gala in Smith Union, like an all-school dance where students dress up and go hang out together. And then like all Bowdoin parties, it's like there are no Bowdoin parties that have lists to like get in. College houses throw parties that are like open and welcoming to all of campus. So I think when I was looking at small schools especially, I wanted to go somewhere that like did not have Greek life. And I think Bowdoin does a really great job of making the social scene super inclusive to all students.
Thank you. While we look for the next person who has a question, I'll point out that this stage is actually set up for a dance performance that's happening tomorrow night as well.
You just said. Oh, cool. Just had another question, bit of a build on the last one, but it is just curious as to the philosophy around the relationship between Bowdoin as a school, students, and parents. Specifically, are the parent, is it, hey, we respect the students as fully functioning adults, and so the parents are in sort of a need-to-know situation. Things need to rise above a certain level before there'd be a direct communication with the parents and administration?
And invite.
Such a great question. So one of the things I talk a lot about, even at the beginning of the year orientation in my parent session, I talk a lot about, that's probably one of the biggest transitions that I see families have to make, is from going from high school to college, where you had kind of all access information, and then it's like, well, what do you mean I can't call and get these grades? Or what do you mean I can't have this information? And it's not that we don't love you and really want to embrace you in that way, but we also want to make sure that we are empowering students to be their own advocate, and also we are bound by federal law. That we cannot disclose information regarding students unless we have the authorization to do so from that student. And so I really charge families, to have conversations in the summer prior to coming to school about how will you all share information with each other? How will you make sure that you're staying in touch with each other and staying up to date? Because it's really important. We want the students to be able to experience Bowdoin as they want to experience it, and we want them to let you into those pieces. And so we really think it's also important for students to communicate not just the bad and the good, because what happens sometimes is things are going bad. They might say, I don't have any friends, and I don't have anyone to go study with, and no one's talking to me, and you're just hearing all this from afar, and you're just concerned, not realizing that after they got off the phone with you, they just went and walked into town with the friends they don't have to go have gelato. And so we try to say, make sure that you're also telling your family the good things, because they will naturally dump the hard stuff on you. And so it's really important that you're also asking, well, tell me something else that happened today. Or were you able to engage with these individuals? Or did you get connected to that staff member? I remember I met with such and such. Have you reached out to them or her or whoever? So it's just really important that we try to make sure that students are empowering themselves and being their own agents in their educational experience. And we'll say that to you. Sometimes we have parents who will email and say, please don't let my child know that I'm emailing you. And I'm like, I kind of have to let them know that you're emailing me. And so usually what we'll do is we will respond to your email and we will copy the student, because it is about their educational experience. And so we try to be proactive in that message so that families know how to engage with us. And I always joke, I say, don't call me. And then and parents look at me and I said, take a sleep, take another sleep. And then if you need to call, reach out. And we'll be happy to engage you. We might say we need to have your child a part of that conversation, but we do want to make sure that you are empowering them to be their own advocate with things that they may need and assistance that they need, resources they may need to reach out to. Do you want to add anything?
There's the Dean of Students right there. She and her team work. I do want to, all I want to add on to that is, you may have questions about when's arrival day, which your students should know, or what does it look like? Does Bowdoin ever have snow days, or I don't know, some general pieces of information? We're available to answer those questions. Much of that is on our website, right? But when it comes to specific questions about your student, that's a different way of responding. And so those are the conditions and those are the reasons and rationales around what Christina's talking about. And the Dean of Students Office is the place where oftentimes those points of contact are happening. I do want to say, we're here for the health, wellness, and safety of your students, right? And so we are not going to, we are going to we convene with one another and say, is this the time where we need to bring the parent in, regardless of whether the student says yes or not. We may reach a threshold where we are saying, sorry, we're going to bring your parent in because we are concerned about the health, wellness, and safety of your student. So I want to recognize we confer on those things when we need to, because we want safety first for all of our students.
Hi, I'm Zai's mom. Besides of the academic part, being very important component in the college, I think is leadership development. So in back to my college, time, probably after 10 or 20 years, I already totally forget what I learned, the detailed formula, you know, what the factors, but what bring to my life very important part is the soft skill development and the leadership development. So that's actually very solid foundation. So I want to see what kind of program will help those kids to development those mindset, soft skill, and the leadership. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, that's a brilliant question. And I will say the person who is charged with student leadership is at home with a very sick toddler right now. So she's another one of my colleagues, Katie Toro Ferrari. Student leadership is critical. And by the way, we have two incredible student leaders here. So I would be interested to hear sort of how it is they have identified their leadership opportunities. This is very intentional for us. So while lots of people think about student affairs as sort of, you know, is this extra thing? We have curriculum as part of student affairs, and part of that is our leadership curriculum, whether it's in our residential life spaces, whether it's in our student activity spaces, whether it's in student government, whether it's in our McKean Center. I mean, we have student leaders, and we need to ensure that they are, in fact, understanding what their expectations are, what their obligations are, how they think about inclusivity, how they think about active bystander situations, how they also think about running a meeting. I mean, there's pragmatics to the pieces of it, but there's also some larger scale pieces that we really want our students to sort of think about when they're leaning in and taking on these leadership opportunities. But now I'm going to turn it over to our student leaders to be like, all right, what do you think about our leadership program?
Yeah, I think that in the various programs, organizations, clubs, etc., that I am in, I've had a lot of opportunities for leadership development. And I would say specifically in my res life position, but even before I got involved in actually applying for a leadership position in a house, in a social house, I got some leadership training that really prepared me for the head proctor position that I'm in right now. So briefly, I talked about mentioning this later on in the panel, but on our campus we have what are called like social houses. As Sam was saying, we don't have Greek life here, but these are spaces for sophomores specifically to go and live in like a community-based dorming situation, right? You have at most like 30 students living in a house. They have a kitchen, they have a living room, and they come together in community and they plan events for themselves, the larger sophomore class, and then the Bowdoin campus as a whole. So I lived in a social house last year during my sophomore year. Quimby House is actually one of the ones on Main Street, next to the one that Sam lives in right now. But within that house, the students themselves, they have like committee leader roles, right? So within those roles, they take a very specific role in planning the events for the house, whether it be within like the academic affairs aspect, within the town and community aspects, trying to plan larger events for specifically like the sophomore class. So within that role, I learned, number one, how to like lead a house meeting to get all of my peers together in a space and try and figure out the events that we wanted to plan for that weekend, or the parties that we wanted to plan, or like the professors and people that we wanted to bring into the house. And you get training for that in the beginning of the year once you are told like what house you're supposed to be in, people vote you in, and yeah, just throughout the whole year, you're on the job, I guess, getting leadership training. And that prepared me really well for the proctor position that I'm in right now. I would say like even amongst like athletics, even if you're not like the captain of a team, they have like a lead program. It's essentially within the realm of athletics where they train students to develop certain leadership skills, so if they do want to eventually be a captain, they have the skills in order to do so effectively. But also, if they just want to be a leader on the team without having that specific role, they can do so. They can listen to their other peers, able to express frustrations, what it is that they like to see on the team, how to develop more like DEI programs, and how to make the space more inclusive, I suppose, especially now as we're like more intentional about that within our athletics. So definitely like plenty of like ways to develop leadership skills that either are like really intentional for you to be like specifically like a leader of like a club or organization, or just to get the skills to take on some leadership skills that would really benefit you later on.
Yeah, and I think to echo that, what's great about Bowdoin is that from the day you step on campus, they throw leadership opportunities at you, and you don't need to be an established senior in this community to be like a really influential and effective leader. So like, once you're a sophomore, you can apply to be on Res Life. Once you're a sophomore, you can like lead an orientation trip. Once you're a freshman, you can like be your athletic team's Bowdoin Student Athletic Advisory Committee representative. And I think what's really great about Bowdoin students is that everyone here is really excited to like seize those opportunities and lead in one way or another. So like, I think the combination of having those leadership opportunities and then having a community that's really excited to like influence each other's Bowdoin experience in a really positive way makes for like a community that has a lot of really great student leaders and a lot of really great student leaders that are excited about leading.
Thanks. More questions? Beautiful.
Hello. How does rooming assignment work in the first year? Is it you pick your room, you try to meet someone and pick them over the summer, or is it an assignment based? And how are rooms organized during first year?
I'm going to answer that question. But first of all, kudos to you. First prospective student to ask a question. No offense, parents. Nicely done. So you do not get to pick your roommate. There is going to be a program later on today. I think it's called Being at Home this afternoon, but you may not be able to make that. I'm going to sort of walk through what happens. So once you deposit at the end of today, you will be officially in the class of 2027. Material about sort of all the things that you need to fill out and complete, we send that stuff once we've compiled the class. In early May, you'll get notified and you'll get all the information. One of the pieces of information you're going to get is a housing form that you're asked to complete, that you, as the student, are asked to complete. And it's going to ask questions about, are you a night owl or are you a morning person? It's going to ask, what kind of music do you like? It's going to ask a
Not
whole...
what you aspire. How you actually are.
Are you neat? Are you messy? Like you need to give it all out there. And then we have, over the summer, because we are highly relational, we have 2 students who are hired through our residential life office who look at all of that information and then create housing opportunities and assign housing. This is very intentional, and I'm not going to apologize for this. This is very intentional to create some opportunities to meet people who maybe you wouldn't have met otherwise. And so we think about how we are bringing groups of students together in residential spaces to create communities and create understanding one another, and to really begin to lean into what it means to be in a space with people who have different interests, different identities, different experiences. So that is something that is very foundational, sort of how it is we think about the first year experience. We don't have singles. That's also a really important piece of this. Again, because we are working very thoughtfully and intentionally around how we create communities. And having a roommate, or more than one roommate, which in a lot of spaces you have 2 or 3 other roommates, is very much about what we aspire to around belonging, communities, and connections that we have here on campus. Anybody else add anything?
Just like technically, most first-year dorms are a quad, so that means you have a common room that's connected to 2 doubles, and those have communal bathrooms and communal showers, and then 2 of our first-year bricks are doubles, which means you have a double bedroom and then like a living room, and those also are communal bathrooms and communal showers.
If you hear the term bricks, that is what they refer to as our first-year residence halls. So if you're like, oh, the bricks, that's what they're referring to. That would be the housing in which first years would be in.
I also want to really quickly echo what you said. Do not lie on that form. Don't do it. If you say, I'm going to wake up early, but you hate mornings, you go to sleep, or you're like, I'm going to go to sleep early now, but you're a night owl, and your roommate goes to sleep at 10:30, and you don't go to sleep until 2, it's just not going to be a good situation for you. Like, it's really, really not going to be good. So truly be honest, and then they'll do the best they can to match you up with someone who's going to fit you.
And then, of course, once you arrive, you'll have an opportunity to kind of live with each other, and then you'll do kind of roommate agreements and roommate contracts, kind of talk through, you thought that you were cool that person could just eat your cheeses, but you're not cool with that anymore, right? Like, so you can have those conversations once you kind of get situated and acclimated.
The last thing I'll say is each floor has what we call a proctor, which is an upper class student who's gone through a lot of training through our residential life office. So our staff who live in our residential spaces are upper class students. We don't have professional staff that are living in those spaces. They are highly trained. They are working to create community and connection, but they're also skilled to deal with roommate conflicts, to sort of help negotiate and help growth in what it is. Most students who are coming to our campus today have never shared a bedroom. And so that's a whole new learning experience, right? And so we really work hard with our proctors around what it is they need to think about and help to address for some students who may have some challenges in that.
It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Please.
So that was sort of my question, but I'm also wondering about beyond the first year, what it's like to be here, where you live and how you live and that sort of thing.
Well, currently right now, our students have just finished going through our housing lottery. The first round. The first round of housing lottery. And I will say, the housing lottery, I think, is really good for character, because I think that's where friendships are tested. And so I think it's a great exercise to go through, but our students are currently going through the first round, then they go through a second round, and so that is how they go through that process to select. They find the people that they want to live with, and then they have a time and slot to then determine to pick where they want to live on campus. So that's how the selection goes after the first year.
The other thing I'll say is, and Gabby sort of made reference to this, we have our college houses. Yeah. So our first years have the opportunity to apply to live in a college house. That's actually outside of our lottery. That happens in February. Students who want to have sort of testing their leadership and want to be able to live in a space with others where they think about what they want that house to be, how they want to think about that community in that house, and take on some responsibilities in leadership. So that happens for our sophomores, and then the housing lottery happens for the rest of our sophomores and juniors and seniors, rising sophomores, juniors, and seniors. I will say about 97% of our students live on campus. So it is a highly residential space. We do give opportunities for our juniors and seniors to consider living off campus, but they don't want to live off campus. They want to stay here. And the last thing I'll say about our upper class housing is over the last 5 years, we did a large study about 6 or 7 years ago, looking at our college housing options for upper class students. And we became aware that it needed a little sprucing up. And so we've built two new upper class housing spaces, Harpswell Apartments that are over by our Farley Fields, and then Park Row, which are beautiful facilities. Every senior thinks they're going to get into them.
They do not.
But we have really thought very intentionally about how to create opportunities. And those new spaces really configure things differently and think about how to gather together in living spaces. So I don't think, they don't get to go into any upper class housing when they're on tours, right?
College houses. Some college houses were open yesterday, both Quinby and Booty, but.
Okay. All right. But this is a highly residential campus, and students likely stay on campus.
I'll also add that Park Row and Harpswell will set completely unrealistic expectations as to what housing looks like outside of Bowdoin for the next 15 years. And also when Dean Lohman said off campus, it's literally across the street. No one lives more than a 5-minute walk from campus, and I'm not exaggerating.
99% of our students are on a meal plan. So even the students who live off campus come on campus.
Still want to come eat.
Enjoy lunch, everyone. More questions. We have a couple minutes left. Yes, please.
What are you most grateful for at Bowdoin?
Most grateful?
Yeah. What are you most grateful for here at Bowdoin?
I think I would say the opportunities I have here and the people that I meet. I feel like because we're at such a small liberal arts college, it's really easy to make connections with the people here on campus and the people who like graduated, and making connections with your professors because the classes are like so small is really important. Having one-on-one conversations, and I'm someone who struggled to talk to my professors for the first like two, even now, you know? But because the space is like so small and intimate, you are able to have conversations not about just like the class that you're in, but about like what you're interested in. Some of their colleagues who could connect you hopefully with a job after you graduate. So I would definitely say, yeah, the connections that I've been able to develop since being here.
Yeah, and this sounds a little similar and kind of like a cop-out, but the people. I have never been in a class where the professor doesn't know my name. Like, the people at Bowdoin are really excited to go to college and to go to college together. Like, the story I tell on my tours is that a good friend of mine, like, was in lab, and if any of you STEM people know, like, you can't wear, like, shoes with holes in them in lab, and she had made the mistake of doing that day, had to run back to her dorm and get back to lab within 5 minutes, and on her way back to her dorm, she's sprinting across the quad. A friend of hers stops her, and she's like, "Why are you sprinting?" And she tells the story, and she took off her shoes, gave my friend her shoes, and she got back to lab in time for the start. And that's sort of a silly little story, but I think it really speaks to like the camaraderie and caring demeanor of Bowdoin students. So I think, and this is what I say all the time, but Bowdoin is like the highest concentration of super awesome people that I've ever met. And yeah, the people here really make it special.
While we look for our next question, while we look for our next question, I'll just share that I'm a Bowdoin alum. Raise your hands, by the way. I'll tell this while you're raising your hands. I'm a Bowdoin alum. I graduated in 2012. I came back to do this job in 2019. On my first day of work, I was stopped in the dining hall by a professor whose class I had never even taken. He said, "Jackie, it's so good to see you." His name was Professor Surf. He taught German. He was great. He was incredible, and I had befriended him during my time in college, and 7 years later in the dining hall, he said, "What have you been up to?" And it was really cool, and now I still run into him at the supermarket. He retired, but he still goes to Hannaford in our community when he's here. Other folks who have questions about student affairs, life here at the college? Yes, please.
Can you talk a little bit about like the athlete, non-athlete divide on campus and whether athletics ever kind of drive the social scene? I understand there's the social houses, and I guess one of my questions is, it seems like you're assigned to one your first year, and then second year you can apply in, but not everybody kind of gets into that. And so I'm just kind of wondering also, second year, third year, fourth year, what kind of drives the social scene if you're not an athlete?
So I will say, so we have 31 athletic teams at Bowdoin, and athletics is actually articulated as part of our mission. There's a lot to our mission, but we identify athletics as part of the mission as well. So there are a lot of athletes on our campus. And this always comes up as a really interesting conversation where students are sort of saying, we need to address the athlete, non-athlete divide. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's figure out how we create opportunities for conversations, how we can sort of break this down. And then when we get to the details of it, they're like, well, I actually have friends on this sport, even if they're not an athlete. I have friends that are on this sport, or I have friends, like it feels a challenge to me to actually see it play out, even though it is a narrative that is there, if that makes sense. I'm not going to deny the fact that some sports teams, we don't, may congregate in certain spaces and places, may live together because you get to choose your roommates, sophomore, junior, and senior year. I will say in the college houses, we don't have sort of a specific athletic team that gets to dominate a certain college house. We are very, again, intentional around what those communities look like. But I also see some real movement around it, around the sort of how students who are not athletes engage with athletes and vice versa. I think our students are also checking one another on that as well and trying to think about what it means to co-sponsor events, what it means to think about creating those opportunities. So I think it's a little bit of both, and it really depends on how you're entering into those perspectives. And then I'm going to turn it over to two athletes to sort of, or Christina, do you have some thoughts?
Well, I just quickly would say, I also see a big shift that's been happening with even, because athletics takes up a lot of time. As a former student athlete, it takes up a lot of time. And so you tend to kind of move as a pack because you're kind of going to the same places. But I also see a lot of our student athletes really engaging in other aspects of campus life outside of their athletic experience. I have athletes on our conduct review board. We have athletes on residential life. So it's not like they're just insular on their team and only integrating within their team. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there might be a technical athlete-non-athlete divide, but that's no different than there being like a theater kid, non-theater kid divide, or a band kid, non-band kid divide, because that's just like who you're spending time with. But as Dino Dejemi said, like I can't think of a single athlete on this campus that isn't also involved in something outside of athletics. And like on your first year floor and on your pre-orientation trip, you are going to be on a pre-orientation trip and on a first year floor with athletes and non-athletes alike. And like, I think the technical athlete, non-athlete divide rarely manifests in a social setting. And like, we have like track team parties that like, if someone not on the track team wants to come to, no one like blinks an eye. So I think while there might be a technical divide socially, at least in my experience, and sort of I think, as Dean Lohman also pointed out, in the past couple years has like really not manifested in the social scene at all.
And I would also say, I think that we are really trying to be intentional about making sure that you have athletes and they are able to be in spaces with like affinity groups as well, so we're having not just athletes and non-athletes, but like, okay, let's get some like athletes and bring some like clubs together in some of the same spaces. And as Dean Lohman was saying previously about the college houses and whatnot, I was on the board to help like situate like people in different houses and admit people into like the houses in general. And they are really trying to be like intentional about like, let's not put a bunch of male white athletes in like this house that, may have historically been predominantly male athlete house, because we are trying to change the culture here as well. So really trying to be intentional and understanding that like, yes, some students do feel this non-athlete athlete divide, and as a result, what are we gonna do in order to try and mitigate that and make sure that it is felt less, especially for new students coming in.
Thank you. So I think we are out of time. So I'm actually going to go ahead and invite Gabby and Sam to just share why Bowdoin, because frankly, I'm shameless. So I'm going to have them share why they chose Bowdoin, and then I'm going to invite you back, I think, into the sunshine. Back into the sunshine where there's going to be a ton of things happening on the quad and throughout the day. So I'm going to invite them to share
Can I just quickly say, Jackie,
Absolutely.
if there is a question that you have that perhaps
Yes.
you're like, I'm not feeling asking my question in this large group, I'll stay after.
I will too.
Incredible. But yeah, why Bowdoin before we put you back out into the 70-degree sunshine that is every single day here?
I would say that, oh my God. I was recruited, so I didn't even know what Bowdoin was until I got the email from my coach. It was just like, hey, you want to come up to Maine? I was just like, absolutely not. But I got here, and I honestly didn't have like the best overnight experience. But later on that day, I had another one of my teammates come, and she showed me around. and we talked to like, I don't know how many people, but we talked to some people. We went around the buildings, and I sat in on a class, and I was just like, you can kind of feel like the connection with the space. And I think despite not having like a good overnight, like the people were so friendly. And you're gonna hear this a lot, but the Bowdoin hello, you know, like people will like say hi to you and like wave and like smile, and it's really nice. And I think in some places you're not used to that, so you'll be like, why are you talking to me right now? But as you go along, and it starts to like become like genuine, it makes you feel like, okay, I'm heard and I'm seen, and I feel like a member of this campus, which is not something you can get at a lot of large schools. So definitely something to take advantage of, and something that drew me in. Also, really quickly, I would say that I didn't really know this coming in, but the resources here, like we have a lot of resources. Like, let me tell you something, like a lot of resources. And I would say really a lot of resources. Be intentional about talking to your proctors about the things that you need help with and the support that you can get, because it really is out there. And pay attention to your emails. Bowdoin people get a lot of emails, but they're like, oh my goodness, this person is coming to campus. Oh my goodness, let's go procrastination workshop, and don't procrastinate about the procrastination workshop, okay? But so many things that really, I guess, pull me into this campus, and even when I'm having a hard time or I'm being like, oh man, like, this is a struggle, you know, there's always things to, I guess, help you out and make sure that you are giving a chance to succeed within this space. You gotta really be intentional about using it.
Yeah, and I think, the college process is super stressful for both students and parents. So I think my answer to this question is gonna be a little bit looking back why I would have chose Bowdoin now that I have a couple years of experience here. And it all, for me at least, circles back to the people. Like, the people here care, and the people here want each other to succeed, and the people here are excited to spend time with each other. And that's not, both Gabby and I are class of 2024, so our sort of senior high school spring and first year of college was pretty influenced by COVID, and I didn't get the chance to come to an admitted students day like this. So coming to Bowdoin was a little bit of a shot in the dark for me. Had only visited over the summer when there weren't any students on campus. But I'm so glad that I chose a place where professors check in on you. Your deans, I remember my first year spring, I got an email from my dean, and I was like, oh shit, what did I do this time? And it was literally they just wanted to get on a Zoom call with me and introduce themselves and ask what's your deal? Where are you from? What are you interested in? How can I best support you? And I think that's something that's super unique to Bowdoin, and is a big reason that I'm very glad that I chose here for college.
All right, with that, I release you back into the sun, frankly.